with the WNBA being around for so long, there are so many capable, professional women's basketball players that can bring that perspective to an NBA staff.
Especially with the Mavericks and the issues they've had in the last couple of years, this is a great move, and I think she's really going to help get that staff together.
Yeah, we've seen some really talented women and, as Dave said, qualified, prepared women taking up these roles, and it's really great to see. The former Nets assistant GM and ESPN capologist Bobby Marks as we start a new segment, and we're calling it Bobby's Money Moves. First, let's start with the Nets. They have the opportunity this summer to extend their big three, and they've already signed KD to a 4-year, $198 million contract extension, but Kyrie and James Harden have not as of yet, but both are in position to sign 9-figure extensions if they choose so. We know that's what the Nets want. Bobby, what are the future cap implications for the Nets if all their big three end up with these extensions that could surpass $500 million?
Yeah, you're right, Malika. $540 million when you total up the 3 extensions. We've already seen Kevin Durant come off the board here. Expected James Harden, $161 million. Kyrie Irving, $180 million plus. And I think the priority now is that it's developing, right? We saw Cam Thomas in Summer League, co-MVP. It's to get it right when it comes to the draft as far as what Brooklyn has left with their draft picks. Players coming in at the inexpensive contracts, Patty Mills for $5.9 million, James Johnson at the veteran minimum. So it's basically about the fringe moves. Bruce Brown at $4.7 million. So you will have the big three locked up, but it's a matter of your bench as far as from a developmental standpoint. And if Cam Thomas plays like what he did in Summer League, Brooklyn's got a good player there.
Well, and General Manager Sean Marks has used the term "we're married to the luxury tax." They know what they're getting into, and he also said that he sort of expects that by the time training camp starts, all 3 of those guys are hoping that they will have signed their extensions, agreed to their extensions by then. But Bobby, you have an article looking forward to the 2022, already looking forward to the 2022 offseason coming out on ESPN.com. How do you expect teams to treat in-season moves in 2022 with a free agency class that could be like a little bit limited?
Yeah, I mean, we've already seen all these extensions. We saw Terry Rozier today, Marcus Smart, Julius Randle. I'm expecting more extensions to come off the board. Certainly the restricted free agents, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges. And here's a stat for you, Malika. There's 191 projected free agents for next year.
Yeah.
31 are starter or above criteria. So it is the summer of the rotational players.
Wow.
It's also the summer of Zach LaVine. And he is basically the only marquee free agent that he's going on, who's going to be available. And there's really only 4 teams that have cap space. So it's going to be a chilly offseason next year. And I'm expecting to see more players locked up during this offseason. And I'm expecting to see more trades also.
Well, Nick Friedel got a big smile on his face when you said that it is the summer of Zach LaVine. And speaking of Nick Friedel, in Golden State, Steph Curry signed his $215 million extension this month, and he's one of 4 Warriors making over $20 million next season, including Klay, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins. So, Bobby, the Warriors are among the Reaper tax group subject to harsher penalties. How would you assess their current cap situation?
Expensive. They're going to set the record this year. $184 million luxury tax payment. When you look at their salaries, $177 million there. We could be heading towards $400 million if they use that $59 million tax mid-level exception. And Here's another team. As great as Steph Curry is, and hopefully we get Klay Thompson, how this team goes is basically going to be based on your youth. Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, your 4 former first-round picks here, and you've got to hit those fringe moves here as far as Otto Porter, Andre Iguodala, players like that. But they are another team that's married to the luxury tax. They're a repeater tax team. They're going to be in the same situation next year also. So you better hope these young players here develop.
Well, and we know that coming from the Bay Area, they're used to that hefty price tag. Bobby, just so everyone understands, Bobby is the guy that all of us experts, he's the expert to the expert. We call you when we have questions. Thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule to chat with us.
Thanks, Malika.
All right. As part of a wide-ranging interview with Kevin Durant and Draymond Green on Draymond's new show Chips on Bleacher Report, Draymond offered his opinion on when he felt KD was winding down his time with Golden State. So take a listen.
I cared about every matchup, no matter who was on the floor. just my look didn't feel as like energetic or opening as it was before. And I like that. I like that I was closed off and focused on my work. I just maybe should have communicated that with more people who were interested in knowing what I was going through, but I had the most fun locking in and completing the task. You know what I'm saying? Because I knew we was going to win every night.
That interview is fascinating. As we welcome back Mark Spears, now that we're more than 2 years removed from KD's departure from the Warriors, what's the state of the Golden State right now?
You know, it kind of reminds me of the San Antonio Spurs. You know, they had an unfortunate injury with David Robinson, and then they get Tim Duncan, and then they get Tony Parker, and then they get Ginobili, and eventually ended up winning 5 championships between 1999 and 2014. And I think with these young guys, Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, that, you know, came with some unfortunate circumstances for the Warriors. Now they got their baton to the future that could keep them in championship contention for several years to come. So I think their state is good. It's certainly surprising. I didn't expect them to get guys like this. And you see Kuminga right there, who I think is really going to help them this year. But no, obviously a lot is on Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson is healthy. This team they have right now, I think they're capable of making a run for a title.
Well, capable of making a run for a title. The Warriors?
Yeah. What?
All right. I mean, so you see.
Curry,
all right.
Klay Thompson.
Okay.
Draymond Green. I mean, Wiggins is going to be back. He's looking good. Wiseman, actually, you need him healthy, but they are certainly capable of being there. They have championship pedigree. They've been there and done that before. Are the Lakers the favorite? Yes. It's probably about 5 teams you can mention in the Western Conference, but if Klay Thompson is healthy, yes, the Warriors could be in the finals. And it would be interesting to see. You see that guy Draymond Green right there after this conversation that he had with Kevin Durant. Wouldn't it be interesting to see them up, Kevin Durant and Green locked up against each other in the finals and a good offensive-defensive battle?
Absolutely. And you mentioned health. That certainly seems to be the factor that makes maybe some folks forget, or maybe that's the chip that's been put on the Warriors' shoulder in order to prove it. That's interesting, though, Mark Spears. So you're taking the Warriors potentially with a path back to the finals against?
Oh, Nets.
Okay. All right. So that means it's KD and Draymond back on the court in a championship together. That's interesting, Mark.
You'll like that. That'll be good travel for you personally. You'll dig that just fine.
Hey, man, back and forth from the Bay to New York. You know I like that. Thank you so much for joining us, Mark. I really appreciate the time. Back to the jump. I'm Malika Andrews here with Dave McMenamin and Nick Friedel. Let's get to the Lakers, who added Russell Westbrook and a bunch of other veteran players this offseason. And Russ was asked about critics who say the team is too old. And he said, quote, "We got a team full of nice, experienced vets that's going to kick these young bleepity bleep bleep." Dave, you cover the Lakers. What do you make of these bleeped out comments from Russell Westbrook?
Well, they better beat these young teams he's talking about. That means they're the teams you're playing in the regular season. They better rack up a lot of wins. And Melo said in his introductory press conference that we all know what we're here for and we got to win. There's that built-in pressure here. Now, in the playoffs and the finals, should they get there won't be young teams. There'll be more veteran-laden rosters. They just got to win. I mean, they made these moves to put together a championship team. Rob Pelinka said it in his comments, saying it's all about being obsessed with championship number 18 for the franchise. So, yeah, beat the young teams, beat the old teams, beat the teams in the middle. You got to win, Lakers.
And they weren't built for 3 or 4 years, as we know. They were built for this season. This is like team load management. Every day you're going to be tweeting out, oh, God, okay, somebody else is sitting down. Because the key is not these games in February and March. They need to be ready for the postseason. If they get there, I think they can have a legit chance. My fear is when you have that many older guys, even as proud as they are and as talented as everybody is, LeBron on down, you just worry about the health staying there for 82 games plus a long postseason run.
Well, we just saw a graphic, right? 31.8, as I mentioned at the top of the show. That would be the oldest roster to win. There are 5 teams that have a median age of 31 that have won in the past, but that is it. So Dave, what have you been hearing about sort of how the Lakers are viewing this? Forget outside critics, inside the team, how are they viewing this age dynamic?
Well, Frank Vogel said one of the most counterintuitive things you'd think with a aging roster was that we want to be a fast-breaking team.
Right.
And he believes that they can do it based on the personnel in LeBron and Westbrook being so great in the open court. But of course, they're going to have to get the requisite defensive stops and get up and down the court and stay healthy to do so. Listen, every single player that they picked, part of the Rob Pelinka plan is to get the sign-off from AD and LeBron on those players. He wants them to have equity in the decision-making process. And so there's no haphazard choices here. They believe all the guys they have are going to fit a certain way. They got to prove it.
Dave, to your exact point, though, this is why I think the Lakers can do it, because they all know what they're getting into. And there's all these different questions about, can Russ fit in? Can Carmelo at this stage do what they're going to need him to do? They wouldn't have gone on this team and joined forces if they didn't believe it can happen. The only thing that scares me, guys, is you look at that graphic and you go, man, they're old. Like, they are legitimately pretty old, but they've got a hell of a lot of talent. You just wonder if the talent together is enough at this stage in their career.
Well, LeBron continues to weigh in on the age factor. Thank you, as if I didn't need more to. I think that's a gas emoji to gas me, #WashedKing. So clearly this is going, here we go again. Nick, you're going to be saying that all season long. You're going to be calling up Dave, and you're going to be saying, here we go again. This is a discussion again and again. We also know the Lakers, right, they've made some changes to their training staff to try to maintain that health, right?
Yeah, they were ravaged by injuries last year, and they made decision to completely overhaul their training staff, and we'll see. I mean, it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to what occurred on the court. You could say that they were freak injuries, but they are trying to get ahead of that by putting health at a premium.
I hope your gas tank is ready to go, because the amount of storylines and soap opera in this team this year, you better load it up, baby, because every day I'm going to get a text like
October 19th. Oh, you're right around the corner.
And you are not going to, not a day sooner. Let's move on to NBA 2K 2022 ratings, which have a packed show for you today, starting with Tim Bontemps' off-season survey. Executives are split on who the best player in the league is, and we discuss. Russell Westbrook uses some choice language to clap back at people calling the Lakers a nursing home squad, and we break that down. And Bobby Marks is here. We'll delve into a round of money moves with Marks, and Cade Cunningham goes on the record for his GOAT pick. Keep it locked, because The Jump starts right now. Welcome to The Jump. I'm Malika Andrews, and we will have Dave McMenamin and Nick Friedel joining me on set shortly. But first, let's get to our NBA insider, Tim Bontemps, who just today released his NBA offseason survey of executives and scouts throughout the league. Tim, welcome back.
Great to be here, Malika. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
We're excited to get to chat with you a little bit. So who did those who participated in your survey feel made the best moves this offseason?
Well, the runaway winner for that, Malika, was the Miami Heat getting Kyle Lowry in that sign and trade to open free agency back on August 2nd. And it's easy to see why. You know, Kyle Lowry's a two-way player, a tough, gritty, hard-nosed guard, and really is the epitome of a Miami Heat player. And his relationship with Jimmy Butler was cited by executives as something that could really be beneficial for the Heat. He should be able to come in and seamlessly fit in with Bam Adebayo and Jimmy with the Heat. And also, along with them re-signing Duncan Robinson, one of the best shooters in the league, and bringing in another definitional Miami Heat player in PJ Tucker, another gritty, hard-nosed guy who should fit right in with the Heat culture. The Heat are looked at as a team that now is up on the same level as the Milwaukee Bucks and Brooklyn Nets at the top of the Eastern Conference, fighting to get back to the NBA Finals.
I'm certainly excited to see how that shakes out. They are a very intriguing squad. But let's dive in a little bit more. Which way were executives and scouts leaning in terms of a finals prediction? I know we're already talking about it.
Well, look, that's what everybody's been doing since the offseason began with Russell Westbrook going to the LA Lakers, right? And the two teams that came out on top, not surprisingly, are the Brooklyn Nets and those Los Angeles Lakers, with the star-studded, star-powered teams that are going to be meeting on Christmas Day across the street from where you guys are at Staples Center. And team executives around the league think that those teams are going to be the ones to come out of their conferences and make it to the NBA Finals. Now, the Nets are a team that everybody certainly expects to get there. Really, the only impediment to them getting to the finals, even winning a title from the eyes of executives, is their health. Are they going to be able to stay on the court like we saw in the playoffs where James Harden and Kyrie Irving both went out in that second round series against the Milwaukee Bucks with injuries? But what was more interesting to me was what happened in the Western Conference, where the discussion about the Lakers really centered around them sort of being the default selection in what is seen as a wide open Western Conference. The Golden State Warriors got a couple votes. The Utah Jazz, last year's number 1 seed, got a couple votes. The Denver Nuggets also got a vote with people expecting Jamal Murray could get back. So, the Lakers are kind of seen as, well, if we don't really know who to pick in a wide open conference, let's go with LeBron James and say that, as we've seen over the last decade, that's a pretty good way to go. So I'm really curious to see what a wide open Western Conference looks like when we get started here in a couple months.
Well, and that's why we need to watch the games, right? That's where it gets really exciting, is where there is no necessarily clear favorite. But Tim, what response did you get when you were asked who the best player in the league was?
This was maybe the most interesting question to me in the whole survey, because generally, when a guy like Giannis Antetokounmpo goes through the playoffs and leads his team to a championship, he's crowned as the best player in the NBA. And, that's what happened a couple years ago when I did the survey when the Toronto Raptors won. Kawhi Leonard was given that honor. Everybody gave it back to LeBron James when the Lakers won last year. But with the way Kevin Durant played in that Milwaukee Bucks Brooklyn Nets series that you and I both covered, we were at that Game 7 when he was unbelievable, playing all 53 minutes, going into overtime, and then going out to Tokyo and leading Team USA to the gold medal, really carrying a team that did not play very well at times around him, and he just sort of lifted them up to the level we're all used to seeing Team USA play at. That led to Kevin Durant getting just as many votes as Giannis Antetokounmpo in that survey. And with the Bucks and Nets looking like the 2 best teams in the league, maybe on a collision course to play again in the playoffs, that's probably going to be a conversation we see go on throughout the season, all the way until maybe next May or June when they meet again, potentially in an Eastern Conference Final showdown.
Absolutely. And this is fascinating stuff. I encourage everyone to go and check out the survey. The internet is buzzing about it, including some players. Thanks so much for joining us today, Tim. We will catch up again soon. So the survey, though, it was split between Giannis and KD as the best players in the game. I want to come back into studio now. Dave, put your GM cap on. Where do you stand on all of this?
Well, I'm always going to lean offense. It's just the type of basketball that speaks to me, and so I will
Let it speak to you.
I'll give the edge to KD here, and it's the slightest of edges. Of course, we're talking about the best player in the NBA, so both these guys belong in that conversation. But there's something that KD does on a basketball court that Giannis simply can't do, and that's make 3-pointers. And there are many times in a game where that is required 15% from 3 in the playoffs. He won the championship, and he's a better defensive player than KD is, but I see that as a hole in his game still, so I give it to KD.
Well, and remember, in the playoffs, Giannis even said, don't compare me to KD. KD is a player in himself who's Giannis views as one of the greatest, if not the greatest. So he doesn't even want to get into that comparison. But according to Bontemps' survey, Nick, I do want to hear what you kind of think about all of this.
It's got to be KD. And the scariest part is, guys, KD is coming off a season where there was still a little bit of rust coming off the Achilles injury. And the next season, for any player that goes through that type of rehab, is always better. So to see where he was in the playoffs, to see where he was in the Olympics, to see where he's going to be in that second year. And Dave, I know Giannis is a better defensive player now, but KD never gets the credit defensively that he deserves because he's so long, he's so athletic. 2 years post-op, I think he is going to be fantastic. And if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be the MVP.
Whew, he's going to be the MVP. Interesting.
That should have been a survey.
Bontemps, are you still hearing that? That should be a survey question next year. But according to Tim Bontemps' survey, the Lakers and Nets, they're predicted to make the NBA Finals. So, Nick, I know it's August, but what's your way too early NBA Finals prediction?
If the Nets are healthy, the Nets are coming out of the East. Every year I sit up here, y'all, and I go, I think it's Utah's time. And every year they disappoint me. So what am I going to do right now after spending 5 minutes thinking about this before the show? I'm still going with Donovan Mitchell and the Jazz because I am convinced one of these years, all the success they have in the regular season can go all the way through the playoffs. I just don't believe that it can come together this quickly for a Lakers roster that is so old. I'm not there on the Warriors. I think it's going to take them at least a year of getting Clay back in the fold. And I never fully believed in the Suns, and they faded out there in the finals. So for the process of default for me, it's still Utah, and I absolutely know I'm going to be disappointed a year from right now.
Well, I'm impressed that you did a whole 5 minutes of show prep.
Really, you know how I roll, baby.
I think it's got to start with Nets and Lakers. Like, why wouldn't you? Because
you're picking the Lakers?
Oh. The team that won the championship 2 years ago, the team that has LeBron and AD.
I can't believe it.
Oh, okay, yeah. But, listen, I think Brooklyn, ever since they traded for James Harden, are the best team in the NBA. They just haven't been healthy. And so it's not just the Brooklyn should come out of the East. Brooklyn should lift up the Larry O'Brien trophy next June. As for the Lakers, I think the biggest question mark is not fit, but time to get the fit right. And they're going to be in a rush process. So the two teams I look to beyond the Lakers in the West are Utah and the Suns. Like, the Suns were in the NBA Finals, up 2-0 on the Bucks.
Right.
Game 5 was a couple plays away from winning that one. If they go up 3-2, they're probably NBA champs. I don't. Of course, you say that they beat the Lakers when AD was hurt, and they beat the Nuggets without Murray, and they beat the Clippers without Kawhi, but they played a fully healthy Bucks team and played them neck and neck.
So he was called, all right, hashtag washed, and LeBron James says, hashtag super washed. But we know what happened after he started tweeting about hashtag super washed last time, Dave.
Yeah, he won the NBA championship.
Yeah, there you go.
2020 in the bubble, and we were there to cover it. Listen, you don't want to count out LeBron. Now, I think you could say that 2 of the last 3 seasons, he's had a major injury. And the year he won the championship, he had a 4.5-month hiatus to get his body right. And so that has to be part of your thinking as you consider him in year 19 and 37 years old. At the same time, perhaps if Tim had worked a little bit more on his phone, and listen, great job with the survey.
Is it
Tim.
possible that could happen?
Yeah, Tim is always
on that phone.
He talked to 10 people around the league. I think if you talk to some more, there's going to be someone who picks LeBron James as the best player in the league.
Fair.
LeBron's awesome. Nobody is discounting that. The issue for me is that Lakers roster on the whole is pretty old. And we're not used to seeing that many key pieces have to stay healthy for that long and then get in the playoffs and play it the way we know they're capable. So that's what scares me. But on the whole, the West, there is just nobody that I feel sure on. I feel really sure on Brooklyn if they're healthy. I still think Philly might scare some people if they can stay healthy. But
Milwaukee too.
Milwaukee
Absolutely.
too, especially with the momentum that they created in the finals. But the West, for the first time in years, does not have that team as we sit here right now that I go, yes, I know for sure they'll be there.
Well, and if the Lakers do end up being the team that does win a championship, they will be the oldest median age of teams to do so. There have been 5 teams in the NBA who have won with a median age of over 31. The Lakers is closer to 32. So I'm not saying we'll get into this more a little bit later in the show. I know Russell Westbrook had some things to say about it, but if they are able to do this, there is only a small amount of precedent for this age group being able to win it all. But coming up, we're going to run it back with the top plays from NBA Summer League, and then we'll bring in Mark. Summer League is over, so it's time to run it back to the best plays of the last 3 weeks. Number 5, Troy Baxter touches the sky for a big oop. Oof. That was pretty.
Gosh.
Look at this.
I love
Get up.
the one-hand cockback catch.
Look how far his arm, like,
Incredible. It dislocates his shoulder doing it.
ouch.
That's a little learning to fly style right there.
Yeah.
That
Little
was
videotape.
beautiful.
What's a video
Look
game,
at
Nick?
Back in our day.
Oh,
Malika
man.
may not know what it is, though.
Number 4, Jonathan Kuminga puts the defender on skates and packs it. I do. Thank you very much. Look at this, though.
He was a highlight machine in Vegas.
It was amazing.
Really incredible. And to finish, he had finishes around the rim, not just off the bounce, but offensive tip backs.
And the
too.
call was great. Cam Thomas wins it for the Nets in sudden death. I mean, it doesn't get really better than that. Like, that's what it's all about.
And if you can give a little more production off that Brooklyn bench, oh my, they're going to be loaded up.
And that was in Bontemps' survey about Jeff Green. How much concern do they have about their bench? He helps with that. Number 2, Kai Jones is all over Kenneth Faried, the vet.
Didn't have to do the manimal like that.
Yeah, that wouldn't have happened to Fareed back in the day, but that one was
Actually,
rough to watch.
Kind of a business decision by Fareed there.
I'm not going to be put on a poster today. Well, number 1 goes to Greg Brown as he goes through the legs on the break.
That is dunk contest worthy material in the middle of a game.
Bulletin board. Bam.
Sign him up.
I mean, hey, that's beautiful.
Loved it.
LeBron was watching. He showed some love to Brown, too. I mean, my goodness. On the break, sheesh.
Coming from a guy who once threw it off the backboard to himself for a dunk in an NBA Finals game,
Yeah.
it's someone who you really deserve.
You want to hear that kind of stuff from. Well, Mark Spears knows a little something about dunks, and this time we'd like to bring in our senior writer for The Undefeated, Mark Spears. It is great to have you on, Mark.
Good to see you, homegirl.
It's good to see you too, my friend. Let's get into some Summer League edition of Jump Ball. First up, it's the top 2 overall picks in the draft showed out at Summer League. So, Mark, who is more likely to win Rookie of the Year, Cade Cunningham or Jalen Green?
Well, they're both going to be on bad teams, but I'm going to go with Jalen Green. Most of it is because he played in that G League. The G League taught him the speed, taught him how to adapt to playing against older guys. And also, I think Cade's going to have a lot more pressure on him playing in Detroit, being the number 1 pick. The spotlight's going to be big on him, whereas in Houston, I don't know how much they're going to be paying attention. So I think ultimately Green's going to show you that the G League Ignite is a great place to go to get ready for the NBA quicker.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to be one of these 2 guys who end up winning it. I'll go with Cade. I think the other parts of his game outside of scoring are more polished at this point when he comes into the league. And also, there's other scorers in Houston that Green will have to be sharing the ball with. So, it's a toss-up. I think they're both bright, incredible young players, but I'll go with Cade.
I'm taking Jalen Green, and here's why. I think he's going to get every shot he can imagine in Houston and in Detroit. We still got the Syracuse guy, Mr. McTen. We've got Jeremy Grant, who has elevated his own game and is going to score plenty for Dwayne Casey.
But he's going to score by Cade being his point guard.
Yeah, okay, but this is an offensive award. It always has been. And if Jalen Green puts up those numbers, he's going to be there in the end.
Well, and Jalen Green is playing with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. He told me that after he was passed up as the number 1 pick, what was he looking towards next? It was Rookie of the Year. So I'm not saying that Cade isn't playing with that same sense of urgency, but that swagger that Jalen Green has, he's already zeroed in on that Rookie of the Year. So next up, let's get to the co-MVPs of Summer League. Mark, you've spent time with both of these gentlemen. Who has more upside, Davion Mitchell or Cam Thomas?
Ooh, man. Boy, that's a hard question. Both of them are probably looking at what you going to say, Mark? What you going to say?
I like asking hard questions, Mark.
I'm going to go with my LSU boy. I think that the Nets need his scoring off the bench. The Nets do have some veterans, and Patty Mills is there as well. I think those 2 are going to be a great 1-2 punch. The tough thing with Davion in Sacramento, you got after Fox and Halliburton, Buddy Hield is still there. And Terrence Davis is there as well. But what we're going to see, I think, in Sacramento is if they're losing, if they come out the gate bad and decide to just go with the youth movement, perhaps they go to the Baylor kid sooner, and his defense could get them on the floor as well. But right now, I'm going to go with Cam Thomas.
Yeah, Mark, defense. Davion will get minutes because of that. And also, as great as Cam Thomas played in the Summer League, he's going to have to learn how to play a role on that team. It's not going to be him creating for himself. A lot of times it's going to be Kyrie or Harden or KD and him standing on a certain spot on the floor, and he better make that shot when he gets it, or he's not going to get the ball back. So I think he is a tougher learning curve versus I think Davion. There'll be a ton of minutes, ton of touches.
What do you think, Nick?
It's Mitchell. It's got to be Mitchell because the defense will always travel. And anybody who has an impact in their rookie year that struggles offensively, every young player goes through it. You watch Mitchell in college at Baylor. You watch him in Summer League. He was locking up guys all over the floor. That will serve him very well in his first year in the league.
He's won at every single level in high school, in college, and now in the Summer League. So I'm curious to see how that translates to the NBA because it's an adjustment. When you're a lottery pick and you go to these bad teams, when you're used to winning, he is so talented defensively. And like you both said, that will always earn you minutes. But lastly.
But Malika, before you say that, Malika saw the Nets. If I'm playing against next to KD and James Harden, Kyrie Irving, I'm going to get the easiest shots of my life. So when he is in the game, when Cam Thomas is in the game, he's going to get the prettiest looks he's had his whole life so far.
Well, that may be. He might be spending a little bit more time in the second unit, but absolutely true. We've seen James Harden also play with that same unit, and guys love getting set up by James Harden. But lastly, we'll get to a couple of second-year players in the All-Summer League first team. Mark, which rising sophomore is more intriguing to you? Is it Peyton Pritchard or is it Obi Toppin?
Well, see, I'm going to make myself look bad because Davion Mitchell locked Pritchard big time in that championship game. And until then, Peyton was averaging like 20 points and 5 threes and 8 assists, and he was killing to the Kings, and Mitchell got a hold of him. But look, Obi Toppin, this summer league was great for him. Obviously, he didn't have one last year. He averaged 21 points, made 2 threes. He eight rebounds, and he's got more confidence, more relaxed. His shooting and rebounding improved, and the Knicks need him. They need him in that front court. They're fine with the guards, and Julius needs some help to go alongside with him. So I like Obi Toppin right here.
And Mark, I was out in Summer League for a couple of days. I was talking to an assistant coach, and he told me that a capable guard is always going to stand out because there's so much that is disorganized about Summer League basketball. You're in a new group, you're learning a new system. So someone like Pritchard, who knows what he's doing, will just look good because of that. So I'll go with Obi because, yeah, the Knicks need him. He missed 10 games last year with some injuries, and Julius Randle kind of took off in that time frame. So I think with another year under his belt and getting to know Tibbs' system, I think there's a lot of room for growth with the next year.
Guys, give me Obi Toppin. Tibbs loves him. He was starting to trust him early last year. We know Tibbs doesn't always love rookies instantly. Now Obi's in his second year. He's going to get his minutes in New York. He's not afraid of that stage. And I know when that confidence builds for a younger player, especially in that market with that coach, it can go a really long way.
You know who else loves Obi Toppin? It's Madison Square Garden fans. When I was in there during the playoffs, Bobby Portis and the way that Pfizer Forum so famously reacted to him, Obi Toppin got moments of that in freaking Madison Square Garden. And so clearly there's that synergy there as well. But